ao vivo, HcO, no seu rádio, na sua TV, no seu YouTube, no seu Facebook. Não, só no Facebook hoje. Amanhã no YouTube,
E no seu
mais,
celular.
mais, mais um encontro HcO. Deixa eu ver se já entrou para mim aqui. Ainda não recebi as notificações. Isso está acontecendo
Eu já
geral.
recebi.
Ah, agora sim.
Vou
Agora
compartilhar.
sim eu tô vendo. Divya está compartilhando. Enquanto isso, a gente vai esperando as pessoas entrarem. Tivemos algumas intercações, algumas questões com o Facebook recentemente, que nos derrubou na entrevista do Git, depois nos colocou de volta, viu que tinham errado, confundiram a voz do nosso entrevistado com a voz de um ator.
O famoso Git.
Famoso algoritmo nos derrubou e nos colocou de volta. Isso, às vezes a inteligência artificial é uma burrice artificial, mas tudo melhora. Estamos de volta. Hoje, por exemplo, o Facebook estava com problemas. Fomos divulgar essa entrevista de hoje no Instagram e sumiu tudo. Sumiram. Uma postagem que eu fiz de manhã, foi só no final da tarde que ela apareceu. Mas estamos de volta, a gente vai aguardar mais um pouquinho, as pessoas entrando.
Querido, já chegando aqui, tô vendo.
Prafula, Maria Celeste, bem-vinda. Parita, bem-vinda. Quantas pessoas vão
Ricardo
entrando?
Abir está assistindo.
Tá uma sessão privada hoje da Rádio Pirata. Rádio Pirata HcO, sua rede de transmissão. Gente, a gente espera mais um pouquinho, porque o Facebook realmente está estranho, não está notificando as pessoas que a gente entrou ao vivo. As pessoas têm que ficar
Entrando
catando
na página.
para descobrir onde a gente está. Mas isso faz parte, é assim que funciona, e somos gratos que conseguimos já há 3 anos e meio, 3 anos e meio, transmitir tanto conteúdo, né? Tanta entrevista interessante.
Eu estava
E
lembrando que a gente entrevistou o menino do podcast, como é que é? Chetna e
a Chetna e o Swaram.
Swaram. E eles tinham 145 entrevistas. Eu olhava, falava, nossa, a gente acho que tinha uns 20, 30, não sei. Eu achava assim, impossível chegar nesse número e a gente já chegou, já passou. Quantas entrevistas são
Não,
já, Vi?
eu
Você
acho
tem
que
a
eles, não,
atualização, Bruno?
eu acho que eles tinham 150, a gente não chegou lá ainda. Os caras fizeram um negócio bacana, mas depois que eles tiraram do ar, e hoje se encontra todas as entrevistas que eles fizeram. Tem um site, para quem quiser a dica, quem gosta de vasculhar no mundo Osho, tem muita coisa, muito
Muita
conteúdo,
coisa.
muito, muita informação sobre pessoas, sobre lugares, sobre livros, sobre música no mundo Sânias. Eu digo sempre que as músicas criadas na presença do Osho são músicas iluminadas, e isso reflete, é só escutar, porque vai entrar no clima.
Tânia's Wiki,
Sânias Wiki é o nome. The Sânias Wiki. Wiki, W-I-K-I.
de Wikipedia, né?
Então, quem quiser pesquisar coisas de Osho, está lá. Um bom material. Isso nos auxilia muito, né, na busca de
Mas
informações. Às vezes a gente está traduzindo legendas e tal, aparecem nomes de lugares, de pessoas referidas pelo convidado ou convidada, e a gente tem que, né, descobrir o que são esses nomes.
é,
Eu vou
escuta,
começar.
quantas entrevistas a gente já tem?
A gente
Você tem
tem
esse número atual ou não?
141 com a de hoje.
Ó, chegando lá nas 150 entrevistas.
140.
Gravado já dá. No que tem gravado já dá. Fora os convidados
É,
queridos que
o,
fazem ao vivo aqui com a gente.
sim, o podcast Love Osho, que a gente referiu, ele está todo no Sanyas Wiki lá, em forma de áudio. As entrevistas estão todas lá.
Primorosas,
Muito,
gente.
muito legal. Se alguém quiser dar uma olhada, entra no Sanias Wiki, na barra de pesquisa, bem no canto direito superior, coloca lá podcast Love Osho. Aí vai aparecer muita coisa lá, muita coisa para quem gosta.
Primorosa.
Tudo gente que teve assim pertinho do Osho, né? Então, muita entrevista interessante. Muitas dessas pessoas a gente já trouxe para o programa,
Sim.
outras um dia também virão, né? Quem sabe. E bom, vamos começar com os nossos agradecimentos, né?
Agradecimentos especiais à nossa equipe HcO, Miguel Fine, Parita, querida, Catarina Lira e a nossa fotógrafa agora, Gisele Catarino. Tem a Catarina e a Gisele Catarino, né? Que nos cedeu a foto que faz a nossa divulgação, o nosso cartaz, esse céu maravilhoso, que é aqui do Petar. Aí eu vou fazer merchandising toda semana na minha pousada. Esse céu está aqui, eu estou na pousada hoje. Ele está aqui. Venham, né? Mas, enfim, agradecimento especial às nossas redes sociais que nos apoiam. Oxo Sem Fronteiras e Nelsânias, a Nova Realidade. Oxo Sem Fronteiras, do Gabriel Sanandi e equipe. Nelsânias, a Nova Realidade, de
Mais uma.
Francisco. E Caminho das Nuvens Brancas, do Sati Bode e da Prachanto, que nos autorizaram a divulgar também o nosso trabalho lindo.
Em breve estará no caminho das nuvens brancas. A gente está ainda em trabalho técnico para realizar essa conexão.
O
Nós
que mais?
agradecemos também a nossa querida Sanguinha, que é um grupo pequeno de pessoas que acompanha essa rádio pirata aqui.
Sim.
E a semana passada, inclusive, eu encontrei, a gente exibiu
Ah, é. Conta um
o,
pouquinho, Bi.
a gente exibiu o filme 10.000 Tons de Osho, do cineasta italiano Lakshen Sucameli. Conta um tanto, né, da trajetória do Osho, em vários momentos, com aspectos controversos também, mas orientado sob a ótica, a lente do amor de um sannyasi, né? É muito bonito. Nós passamos pela primeira vez presencialmente na pousada Mevlana Garden, em Barra de Ibiraquera, onde se realizam os retiros do Vasant Swaha, um sannyasi iluminado do Osho, que a gente acompanha bem de perto, que já nos concedeu a graça de nos dar duas entrevistas que renderam 4 episódios que estão na primeira série do HcO, na primeira temporada, e na última, na sétima temporada, na sexta temporada, que foram as últimas do ano passado, de dezembro.
Maravilhosos,
Fala-
maravilhosos.
A gente passou o filme lá, encontramos gente da Sanguinha, como o Jachan. Fala, Jachan.
Jaxã,
Não sei se ele está por aí,
querido.
fica nosso abraço. Enfim, um aviso importante também, a semana que vem a HCO estará em retiro, representado pela Dívia, lá em Ibiraquera. Então, a semana que vem nós vamos pular e voltamos dia 19 de
De
março
março.
para mais um episódio. Tem mais recados ainda. Esse programa sobrevive graças ao apoio de doadores, de pessoas que nos presenteiam com sua colaboração, que ajuda a gente a pagar os custos, que tem custos para realizar. Então, agradecemos muito e aqueles que puderem ajudar com qualquer quantia, a gente fica muito agradecido mesmo para a gente
Mesmo.
tocar para frente. Tem muita coisa por fazer ainda, tem muitas entrevistas já gravadas, tem muitas por gravar, algumas já combinadas, só falta marcar a data, outras já existentes que a gente está trabalhando para soltar aos pouquinhos, na medida da nossa capacidade.
Como
Então,
essa maravilhosa que vem hoje.
a de hoje. Hoje é mais uma entrevista cheia de luz, né? e vamos chegar lá, mas antes disso, também a Dívia deixa a chave Pix nos comentários fixos para a gente receber as doações. Nosso muito obrigado àqueles que o fazem.
O
Também,
fazem. Ah,
também um recado especial e importante: nós não somos um canal oficial do Osho, somos grupos de amigos, contadores de histórias. Que histórias são essas, diga?
Histórias com Osho. Melhor que Netflix.
Muito melhor que
Mas
Netflix
muito,
e todas as outras.
muito melhor. Ah, é,
É,
porque são reais, porque elas vêm da alma de cada um, da experiência de vida de cada um, do contato real com o mestre. E que isso acontece com a pessoa quando ela encontra o mestre e como isso transforma a vida. Né?
vamos
Eu
adiante.
quero dar um beijo para Shakti, que está aqui. Shakti, querida.
Nossa entrevistada?
É,
Beijo, Shakti.
querida.
Vamos lá. Mais uma flor
Vamos
de
lá.
Osho hoje. Mais uma
Isso.
flor de Osho, né?
Apertem os cintos, que esta entrevista está profunda e silenciosa.
Beijo, gente. Final a
Só,
gente volta, né?
só Sannyasi que entende a entrevista silenciosa. Mas-
Sound of
Gente,
one
vamos
hand.
lá. Deixa eu dar um recadinho antes. A legenda, desativa a legenda porque o filme está legendado, tá? Então, nos três pontinhos lá, desativar legendas automáticas, para não sobrepor, tá bom? Se der qualquer pau, qualquer instabilidade da internet, a gente vai colocar amanhã no YouTube, lindona e boa a entrevista, tá bom? Mas fica, porque às vezes é uma instabilidade que depois ela se recupera por si, tá bom? Até já? Ah,
Até
e no
já.
final a gente está aqui. Fica até o fim para dar um beijinho na gente no fim, tá? Beijos, até já.
Vishrant, welcome to our program. We would like to thank you for accepting our invitation. And, well, welcome.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Okay. So, first question: how did Osho come into your life, and what happened next?
You're going to love this story. This is a doozy. I was a publisher in Fremantle, West Australia, and I had a very successful publishing company. And I had a girlfriend who was a lovely, lovely woman, but in those days, I was an anti-drug campaigner. I put out journals against the abuse of drugs, which were distributed to every doctor's surgery in West Australia, every rehabilitation centre, and when television station wanted to talk to someone about drugs, they'd come and talk to me because I was recognised as the local expert, even though I really wasn't. But what happened is this girlfriend of mine started using heroin on the weekends, and I found out that she was doing it, and I asked her to leave, and because I didn't want to live with her because she was using heroin. I was very judgmental back in those days. And what she did is she went to her ex-husband, who was a heroin dealer, who had actually been supplying her, and she told her husband that I'd actually abused her, which had never ever occurred, because I've never done anything like that to a woman. Anyway, he, with his wisdom, hired two men to break my legs. Now, the story goes on. The local police force were friends of mine, and they came to me and they told me that there was a contract out on my legs from some thugs. And they told me how the contract got there as well. That's how I found out about it. And so I had been visiting the Osho Rajneesh restaurant in Fremantle, Zorba the Buddhas, for meals. And I really enjoyed the people and I really enjoyed the food. It was vegetarian food, it was great. And a guy called Indivar was running a group that weekend, an encounter group. And so I ran away from home. I got in my car and I left home. And I went and did this encounter group. My house got vandalized by these guys when they tried to find me. But I ran away to get away from some thugs who wanted to break my legs. While I was in the group, I had a vision. And I'm not the sort of guy who has visions. I'm just not. I'm too pragmatic. And I had this vision where I was looking down this big water pipe, and you could walk down the water pipe. It was so big. And at the end of it was this little Indian guy. And I was looking at him, and I didn't recognize him at first. And then I started to look more closely, and I could see that it was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. And he was going, "Come here." And without hesitation, I came. I applied for sannyas immediately. And I was a three-piece suit guy, straight as. I wasn't a hippie, so it was a little bit odd. And that was how I got involved with the Rajneesh organisation. I was running away from people who wanted to break my legs.
You tried to save your legs, but he got you into your heart.
I felt called. And it was very, very real for me, this calling to come and be his disciple. And the following year, I went to the ranch where he was at the time, and I did 4 months there in mystery school. And this whole thing changed my life, because instead of making myself bigger, better and more powerful, which I'd been doing in personal growth up until that point, I started to look at undoing everything in the Osho washing machine, where I was just stripping myself down of all these belief systems that had made, it used to be Vincent, a really big deal. And it was nice to actually have this different life, a chance at a different way of living. And it was offered to me through the Rajneesh organisation. But that's not how I actually really got to meet him. The following year, I went back after 4 months of being in mystery school. I went back again for another 4 months because I was so taken by a therapist called Tirtha. Ananda Tirtha was his name. And he was just wonderful. He could see me and he would tell me what he could see. And I couldn't find anyone anywhere in the world that could do that besides him, because I was too tricky. The following year I got to the ranch and I wanted to talk to Osho, but you can't. There was like 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people there, and you couldn't get within 50 meters of him. And I realized that as a publisher, I was a journalist, and I rang up the New York Bulletin from the ranch and told them I was at the ranch, and this was at a time when the National Guard were threatening to come over the fence, and I told them I was a journalist from Australia and that I was there and would they like to hire me, and they hired me on the spot as a journalist, and that gave me a ticket to interview Osho. Now, absolutely in my arrogance, I had no idea what I was dealing with. I didn't know. I just thought he was a really switched on, wise old guy who I loved. But he blew my mind. I sat in front of this guy and he just blew my mind, and then I knew that there was 2 types of people on the planet. People who aren't awake and people who are awake. And he was awake.
Yes. Wow.
Was it so in the beginnings of 80s?
Yeah, I took sannyas in 83, and I went to the ranch in 84, and I went to the ranch in 85, and I eventually went back when he went to India in 89 again to be with him again, because I had taken him as my master, and I loved him incredibly. He is responsible for changing my life immensely, and I have so much gratitude to that man.
What's the meaning of your name?
Oh, here's another good story. You're going to like this. I was such a smart-ass businessman because I'd been very successful at a young age. I retired when I was 28. And I wrote to the ranch to get a name, and I said to them, I would like to come to the ranch and help you run the ranch. In arrogance, you know. And they sent me back a name, Prem Vishrant, which means restful love or relax. I realized it was a message and it was a reasonably hard name for me to take on because as a Westerner and Vishrant's a very foreign name, but because I loved Osho so much, I saw it as a teaching. I saw it as a sadhana, something I needed to learn to do, which was relax, become restful. As a matter of fact, become restful love. That was a mission, I can tell you, because I was a war machine. As a businessman, I was a war machine, like a Sherman tank. I needed to take all the armour off, take all the weapons down, and be a nobody. And I tell you, I couldn't do it. It just was so hard. So I eventually realised that I can't stay. After spending, I think, 5 months in Villa Volpe in Italy in 1987 with Tirtha, who now calls himself Paul Lowe, I realised I can't be in business and go for higher consciousness. I just can't, because the business is against my heart. And so I came back from Villa Volpe in November 87, and I gave my whole companies to my staff because I didn't want to be connected anymore to them, and I didn't want my staff to lose their jobs if I sold it, because they'd been loyal for 9 years. And I just gave them everything, and I walked out as a bum, basically. Paid all my bills, took my shoes off, and walked around Australia as a bum, looking for my heart for 4 years, barefoot. And during that time, I learnt to become a nobody. I learnt to become someone who wasn't going anywhere, who nobody wanted to know. And in that humility, I found my heart. I found unconditional love. And that motivated me to move in a different direction, the direction of service to humanity, service to people. So I went back to school because all I was good at was business. I was really good at making money, but that was it. I went back to school and I trained as a naturopath and a psychotherapist, so I'd have some skill levels that I could help people with.
So first, I want you to tell us a bit more about the interview with Osho. How was it for you?
Okay, so I'm asking the question, and what I've realized as I'm asking the question, I'm reading it. As I'm asking the question, I've realized that I don't know what I've just said, and I don't know what's coming. My mind was so frozen in the moment that I just read word for word for word, looking at him, and then stopping and listening to him. And then my mind was so gone, he then answered all the questions and started talking about all sorts of things. And I made the huge mistake of starting to ask him the same question. And he leaned forward and said, "You're not listening to me." Wow, what a whack with Shakti that was. The guy got me, and he got me good. I had 2 interviews with him. I never took the interview because I was absolutely shit scared to do it again. He got me. I was on camera and he got me. I got so ungrounded while I was on camera, but it changed my life. Within a year and a half of that, I started having satoris, major satoris, finding myself as the universe, finding myself as everything and every particle being love, and knowing full well from then on that I wasn't a mind, I wasn't a body, I was beingness, but I'd come back to ego-based reality because I lost the satori. Well, you can't lose beingness, but I came back to the mind, away from awareness. And I didn't know enough about what I'd found and how I'd got there to actually get back again. I had been inquiring on the waterfront for 4 hours, asking the question, who am I, and answering it and discounting the answer, which is the Zen methodology of self-inquiry. And I was relaxed. I was really cool. I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. And suddenly I found myself as the universe after 4 hours of self-inquiry. And God, it just broke my heart because I realized that it was Osho that had helped with this. He had facilitated me finding myself as truth. How do you repay that? You can't repay it. It's not possible.
Wow. The second question you really answer, but I will ask you again. It is, could you share with us how was your life as a sannyasi during the different phases of Osho's work, like Rajneeshpuram, Pune 2?
I wasn't in the Pune one. I was in Pune 2, and
Pune 2.
then I was with him again when he came back to Pune. Pune 2 when he went there. I wasn't in Pune 1. I was at the ranch, but I was so out there as a sannyasin because I was a businessman, not a hippie, and so I was driving Porsches and Rolls Royces, and when I got my mala, my first mala, I just covered it in gold and 21 diamonds. And I used to wear red leather and a cape. I was just so ostentatious. Because I was still so ego-based and so trippy, but the whole sannyas scene was a party scene. It was like, let's dance, let's party. And I just grabbed it and partied and partied and partied and partied. And did dynamic meditation and did Kundalini meditation and did whatever groups came along because I was a group junkie. And I loved it. It was brilliant. I lost a lot of friends because they couldn't get over how weird I'd become. My salesman started complaining to me about how I was behaving. So I had 14 6-foot-high photos of Osho blown up into frames and put them in the 14 offices. And if they didn't like it, they could leave. But that was the one stage of sannyas for me. I still had a massive ego. I still had I didn't really understand him at that stage. It wasn't until he got me in 85 that things started to change, where I started to realize that, hey, there's more to this than just being a Yahoo. And my heart started to become more important to me than making money. And so when I went again to see him later in 89 before he died, I was there for 5 months. I did mystery school there for 5 months, and I went to satsang every night and darshan, and I could see that he was different. He had changed. He was so frail. He was so weak, and I could see it. It was like he was gliding along rather than walking. And when I'd met him in '85, he was so vital, so in the body, whereas when I saw him in '89, he was gone. He told me in '85 that I heard in '85 that he'd been poisoned while he was in custody with radiation. And I tell you what, I believe it. I think that's exactly what happened to him. His body had it in 4 years. It had it. And he was a young man, really. And so that broke my heart as well. And so when I went back in '89 to see him, I went back very poor. I had no money. I'd already given all my companies away. So I stayed at Lakshmi Villas, and I was a bit of a bum, you know. I made money while I was there by making jewellery out of crystals and selling it to Westerners, so I could pay to get into satsang and do groups. But I could see that he was dying. He was just disappearing, you know. And I got a really bad dose of the bugs, the parasites, and I had to leave because I got so sick. So I left in December and came back to Australia. He died in February. I knew he was going to die. I could just see it, you know. Vidya had died, and it made me so sad when he eventually passed. It was like the end of the world for me, because as far as I was concerned, he was my doorway to enlightenment. There was no other doorway. He was it. And I owed him so much already for what he had shown me, and now he wasn't there anymore. I'd lost my master. As far as I was concerned, I'd lost my master. And I left the Rajneesh organisation then because I was actually there for Osho. I wasn't there really for the sannyasins. I was there for Osho. And I continued doing his meditations. I continued doing self-inquiry. I continued opening my heart more and more and more, stripping down, taking away all belief systems that created any kind of contraction in me. I was still doing the work. I was still listening to his videos, but he was gone, and I'd given up on enlightenment. What I hadn't given up on was the way of the heart, because he was a heart teacher as far as I'm concerned. And I pursued heart by practicing openness, removing every obstacle that was in the way of being open. And I experienced a great deal of love for my client base, for my friends, for my family, because my heart was opened. And it was opened as a result of being with Osho. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. As a businessman, I was really a war machine. I was like a Sherman tank. And so it was so nice to live this way of the heart.
So, Vishrant, tell us about your process of awakening. How was it? How did you get there?
Well, that's another story. It's a pretty good one. A guy called an Advaita Vedanta teacher from the East Coast was coming over to West Australia to hold a retreat down in Denmark, which is about 4 hours drive south of Perth, where I live. And I was really keen to go down there and just see what he was like, you know, because I had been studying Papaji, and Papaji unfortunately had died, but he had these disciples around the place. And Isaac Shapiro was appearing down in the southwest of West Australia, and I decided to go down, take my family, take my kids down, take my wife down, because she was a sannyasin as well, and just see what this guy's like. But before I went, and I paid for everything. I paid for everything in advance. And then I watched a video of him on YouTube, and I really didn't like him. Because I didn't think that he had it, because he was talking about relationship, and I was so used to the image of Osho, and I associated that with enlightenment, that I wasn't seeing what this guy had. And then I went down anyway because I'd already paid for it. I ended up getting myself a seat somewhere in the auditorium. The moment he walked in the door, I woke up again. I found myself as the universe again. His energy field, his Buddha field, was enough to take me there. And after that, it was another 12 months in the presence of another teacher, because I spent that whole year self-inquiring. After I started to wake up, I realized that it was possible again, because I went back to ego-based reality, but I realized it was possible again for me to wake up. And the thirst in me grew like a fire. And any teacher that came to town that had a presence, I'd go and sit with, and I'd be with them, whatever they were doing. I'd do whatever retreat, whatever group, whatever satsang, I'd do it, and I'd be there. And I'd self-inquire. I studied Ramana Maharshi and his methodology of self-inquiry, and I took it on board. Every thought was inquired into. Who's aware? Who's aware? Who's aware? And I started to find myself being able to find beingness by myself as a result of self-inquiry. But still, I'd kept coming back as ego. I kept coming back as a somebody who thought he'd been somewhere and thought he was going somewhere and had the normal problems of life. But after a year, and I saw quite a few teachers in that year, a fellow called Vartman came to town. And he was once again holding retreats down in Denmark. And I went and did a retreat with him. And he absolutely destroyed me. Because I hosted him, and I drove him around, and I took him out, and I fed him. And at some point he asked me to be his chiropractor, because I worked as a chiropractor, physiotherapist. And I said to him, this is one night he'd come back to my house, and I said to him, no, I have to talk to my wife about this. I can't just come to Europe and be your chiropractor. After he left the house, I was overwhelmed with grief, because I felt like I'd betrayed truth. And so I drove around all night after I dropped him off at where he was staying, down in Denmark. I drove around crying. I was just distraught that I'd betrayed truth. And I went to his place where he was staying at 6 in the morning, and he came out at 8. And he said, what are you doing here? And there was a whole pile of people around. And I said, I've come to tell you that I'll come to Europe and be your chiropractor. And he looked at me, and he looked at me for about a minute, just stared at me, and then said, no, I don't think so, and then walked off. And it absolutely destroyed me as an I. It just destroyed me. It broke my back. It was like a steel worm was crawling through my heart all day long. And I surrendered to it, and I surrendered to it, and I surrendered to it. And I started finding myself more and more and more as beingness, as the everything, as the nothing. And when he went away, because that was the last day of the retreat, I found myself as the universe. I found myself as the universe without a Vishrant, without a somebody, without any sense of doing. Doership had gone. It has been like that now for 25 years.
Ah,
So I play with people like you.
I guess we should come to Australia, yeah?
Oh, look, I've come to Brazil. I'm there now.
Yes.
Wow, yes, please.
The thing is, it's like when you find yourself as truth, you are everywhere because you are everything. You're not in one place anymore. Like there's a body here, but there's no identification with it. That disappeared. There's no sense of somebody doing anything here. It's just all happening. I'm blissed. My mind is resting in beingness, blissed out to the max. And I just love you, and I love you, and I just want to share this because this is so beautiful, and this is my master's gift that he gave to me. And this is a continuance of it. They say that Osho died. No, he's alive in his awake sannyasins. He's alive in his sannyasins. He's still here.
It's so beautiful to hear that because we just love Osho so much, you know?
Yeah.
And
Well, we were going to do this interview in up where I live, but unfortunately we had a power outage today and we couldn't get, and the local telecom system went down. So we've had to come to Restful Waters, which is a wellness centre on 10 acres that we run, and we do run groups here. We run counselling services here. And so I'm not in my normal place. If we were in my normal place, there'd be a picture of Osho right here. Yeah. But we left that back at where we were going to do the interview at my home. He's in my heart. He's in my mind. See, I see this is what he wanted. He wanted his sannyasins to wake up and spread what he was spreading, the freedom. Zorba the Buddha, the new man.
How do you see Osho and his legacy today?
Ah, you're looking at it.
Ah,
And I'm also looking at it.
ah,
Yes. This is his legacy. He was a great master, and it hasn't stopped. People might think it has, but it hasn't stopped. It's just taken different forms. This body is a Westerner's body. I still like Indian food though, but it's a Western body and it's teaching the same thing in a Western way. My teaching is very pragmatic. I've taken all the smells and bells out of it. I've produced it basically for Westerners, so it doesn't put people off. I don't call myself a spiritual teacher anymore. I call myself a reality teacher, because the truth is we're talking about reality. Beingness, what we truly are, is reality. I found the word spiritual to be a little bit too holy for me. I'm very pragmatic. I'm only interested in what works, and I'll only talk about my own direct experience, nothing borrowed from anyone, including Osho. So here we are. It's party time.
Great, great.
great. Cool.
We always hear from enlightened ones saying that you should search and look for a living Buddha to continue the growth. Would you please comment about that?
Yeah. If you wake up, you won't be very welcome in Pune. You see, it's he set up a wonderful place that would have been good for other awake sannyasins to go and teach people how to wake up, because they have a Buddha field and it'd help them. but I don't think you'd be welcome if you woke up. I'm pretty sure I'm not welcome there. When my video went up of me interviewing Osho, they removed it completely. I had to find a copy of it in Russia and put it back up again. And then they challenged the copyright on it, which I defeated them on, because I also had copyright on that video, because I was the interviewer. So I don't really agree with what's happening there. I think that Osho's legacy is still very, very alive in his sannyasins around the world. The love is there, you know, and as long as the love is there, the message is going to be put out. We're going to actually we talk about it. We run things like what I'm running here in Perth, West Australia, to a group of sannyasins. Some of them are sannyasins of Osho's, some of them aren't. They're all sannyasins of mine, but it's the same. It's not different. It's the same. I teach the way of the love, the way of the heart, love. That's what I teach. And I teach it through the different meditations, the different practices of openness, self-inquiry. We have a washing machine here also. And it has a tumble dryer and a wringer. It works, because one of the things that happens when you're awake is you can't stop telling the truth. You'd rather die. And the truth is very simple. We are beingness, all of us. We are all one. From my perspective, I'm talking to beautiful parts of myself who live in Brazil. I don't know if I answered your question then. What was your question?
It's about being in the presence of awakened one to continue to grow.
A living Buddha.
I don't think it's possible otherwise. I really don't. My experience is that I got initiated or germinated by Osho into higher consciousness, and it was the other awake teachers that supported that germination, that growth through their Buddha field. And I don't think if I hadn't had those people in my life, I would have woken up. I don't think it's possible. Because before the Advaita Vedanta teachers came, it was 8 years before they came to Perth, West Australia. I was living the way of the heart, which was a very beautiful way to live, a lot of happiness in that, but I wasn't finding beingness anymore. It wasn't until I came into their presence that I started to melt, dissolve, find myself as everything again. And I don't think it's possible otherwise. I think a awake person who has a Buddha field is a walking black hole. Everything pours into it. Everything pours into it. When I got close enough to Osho, he absolutely destroyed me because he was so powerful energetically. I rewatched the video where I interviewed him the other day, and I could see he was playing with his hands. He was using mudras on me. He's a tricky master, because he knew I wasn't just an ordinary journalist. He knew I was a sannyasin. Yeah, so I don't know who you have in Brazil. Who can help? Swaha, I think, is in Brazil. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's a good man. He's a very good man. I spoke to him, and he's lovely. Yeah, I've enjoyed him.
Yes.
But you need more of him. You need more.
Yes. Just today, I'm going. He's 400 kilometers from where I am. So just after this interview, I go straight to him. There is a satsang this afternoon.
One of the things that Osho didn't tell us clearly enough is that you don't survive enlightenment. You actually have to give yourself to truth. You have to give yourself in total to truth. You don't have a later. You don't have an after. It's actually your death as an I. You don't make it. And you do that because of love. In love, you'll give your life away to truth. And so the way of the heart is, in a lot of ways, a requirement to facilitate enlightenment, because it's in love that you are willing to die for truth, so you can become a light that others can see. But the thing is, you know when you get close to enlightenment that you might not survive it, that you might die as a body. You know that, and you go, yes, that too. Yes, that too. Everything. Everything for God and nothing for me. Everything for truth and nothing for me. Everything for beingness and nothing for me. It's the only deal in town. There is no other deal. There is no such thing as selfish enlightenment.
It's beautiful. We kind of blown away, but still we have 2 questions to ask you.
Oh, you're so
Okay.
welcome. You're very welcome. You know, you're lovers of Osho. You're lovers of mine. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. We are, well, we want to get all Osho enlightened ones, yeah?
Yeah.
To ignite other people too. So, Divya, 7.
Could you tell us about your work as a spiritual teacher?
As a
And
reality
how does
teacher.
it evolve? Meetings and retreats and
Okay.
all kinds of.
Yeah. I hold at the moment 8 meetings a week. 4 of them are for the public, where anyone can come online or come to a meeting, and 4 of them are basically private. They're for sannyasins only, and they're mystery school, whereas things are a lot more intense because people are getting undone, and they actually come every satsang, and so they get undone and they get undone and they get undone, because it is an undoing process. Satsang is a destructive process. It's not a building up, making people bigger, better and more powerful. It's not personal growth. It's an undoing process, and that's probably not suitable to the general public. The general public just want to hear nice stories, and I tell the nice stories like Osho did. Come a little bit closer, come a little bit closer, because it's when you get close to someone who's awake that things really start bubbling, because everything inside of you gets undone and starts pouring out. And that's when dynamic and kundalini come in very handy, because it helps clear the stuff that's coming out. So it's a little different. So 8 times a week we have meetings. Some of them are 1.5 hours long, some of them are 1 hour long. During the rest of the day, I'm with my students. Different students, but I'm with them, and it's always satsang, because satsang is 24 hours a day. It's not a set time during the day, it's all day long and night. And so I have people with me all the time because I want to give them the best chance of raising their consciousness levels towards enlightenment and finding heart. And we have retreats, 5 a year, some 4-day ones, I think 3 4-day ones and 2 7-day ones. And they're residential, people can come and stay. A lot of it nowadays is actually done online, because people are in other countries. They can Zoom in, or they can find me on YouTube, or nowadays TikTok. I've only just gone on to TikTok because I don't like it, but I've only just gone on it, and we got 160,000 views in one day on TikTok. It was like, whoa, that's pretty good. So I I have a lovely team of sannyasins who actually work promoting what's here, the same as Osho did. He had a promotion team as well. Well, we have a promotion team here because it really is about getting the word out, getting the message out, getting the Dharma out. And the work is very repetitive though. Osho had magical ways of repeating himself over and over and over again to sound interesting. All awake teachers do the same because it really is about openness. It's about learning acceptance, learning let go. The more we can learn about acceptance and let go, the faster we can move to a state of unconditional surrender, which is a non-doing. And a mind that is capable of unconditional surrender is a mind that is capable of supporting enlightenment. So it's up to you. What do you practice? What do you practice? Do you practice let go? If you're really lucky, you're in an environment where you don't get along with people so well. It gives you a chance to really practice acceptance and let go. We all try to avoid discomfort and find comfort, but the truth is the people that really piss us off are our best teachers because they're the ones that we can practice surrender with. They're the ones we can practice acceptance with. And so I have a great deal of gratitude to my ex-wives because I learned more about acceptance and more about surrender by being with them than anything else.
Great.
So, continuing, just to end this interview, this beautiful interview, what advice would you give to new and old seekers about the path?
Old seekers, you mean old sannyasins?
Sannyasins or not sannyasins?
They need to find a living master. Because the ego is so tricky. It is so deceitful. It's so good at surviving. And when you find a living master, the living master has your demise in mind. They will take you apart and take you apart and take you apart and put you in a position where you eventually surrender unconditionally. And if they're not doing that, they're probably not doing the right thing, because it's only in unconditional surrender that we can find ourselves as truth. When we're really, really, really gone. Living teachers are rare. If you can find one to be online with, or if you can find one to be in person with, you're very lucky. It's not such a good idea to be with the really big teachers because you fall between the cracks. You don't get noticed. If you can find someone who's relatively small and awake, you've found a real gem in this world. Mm-hmm. Just being in their presence might be enough. Before awakening, I was taking my whole family up to Rishikesh to sit with the Mona teachers, which are awake human beings, but they don't actually talk. They're silent, because Mona means silent. And I was going to live up in Rishikesh for 6 months because I'd saved enough money to do that. And then the Advaita Vedanta teachers turned up in Perth, so I never went. But I knew the value of a Buddha field. The Buddha field is, you just can't replace it. There's nothing that's better. If you surrender in it, you can find yourself as truth, you can find yourself as heart. If you surrender in it, everything that's inside of you that's not right will come out. But the key is surrender. The answer is always yes. Yes takes us to heaven, no takes us to hell. You know, some of the teachers that I had, I didn't even like, because I didn't like their personalities, but they had the Buddha field. And I knew what that was worth. I knew how rare that was. And so I would get as close as I could. I hosted a lot of these teachers. I had them stay at my home. I drove them around. I fed them. I did whatever I could to be close to them because I knew the value of the Buddha field. And I was interested in waking up. I was interested in getting free from this mind, the bars of which used to be made of fear. I haven't experienced fear in 25 years. It all disappeared when the ego dropped. The survival mechanism died. And I have my eyes on you. Crosshairs. Because you're interested. Anyone who's thirsty, I'm interested in. Anybody who's thirsty. Because they're the only ones who can get free. The thirsty ones. The ones who are willing to do whatever it takes to get free. They're the ones. And they're the ones all the awake ones are looking for. They're the ones Osho is looking for. The thirsty ones.
So beautiful.
You're so welcome, Ricardo. You're so welcome, Divya. So welcome. My own heart. My own heart.
So one more question. That's not a question. We always ask our guests to say one word for Osho.
Love. There is no other word. Love. I have an interesting story that you could end with. Osho's birthday is on the same day as my mother's birthday. Yep, same day. And my mother wanted me to take her out to dinner. This is when Osho was still alive. I think it was 87 or something like that. And I was taking her out to dinner. She was in the Rolls Royce, because I had a Rolls Royce. And I was driving her to a restaurant, and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "It's Osho's birthday too." And I'm so grateful to him. And I had tears running down my face. And she said, "I want you to turn this car around and drive me home right now." She was so upset because she never agreed with me becoming a sannyasin. And so that is such a memorable moment to me of my love for Osho. The dedication, the beauty of that man. The gratitude. My mum never got it. She still won't call me Vishrant. 40 years down the track, she still calls me Vincent. It's like, no. But, you know, she's my mum, so I can't stop her.
So you may call me Abiru instead of Ricardo.
Abiru.
Abiru,
What does
yes.
Abiru mean?
Fearlessness.
Of course, Abiru. Yes, that's similar to Abai. Abai is also fearless.
I think it's the same root, yeah?
Yes. Two of my sannyasins, one's called Abaya and the other's called Abai. And they're two of my sannyasins, fearless. And the reason they were given those names is because I could see in them that they were letting fear rule their lives too much. And I gave them the name as a sadhana so they wouldn't serve fear so much. They'd actually look at it and step through it instead of serving it. So Abira, I don't know if that's Abiru. I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but there you go.
Yes. So Vishrant.
Divya is the name of a friend of mine who was a sannyasin of mine who died last year. And she was an older lady, and I loved her so much. So it's nice to see the name Divya again.
Yeah. Celestial, né? The meaning is celestial.
Yeah. We are one.
Yes. Thank you
Correct
so
answer.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vishrant. We loved
Oh,
this
thank you.
interview so
Thank you.
much to be with you.
We don't want to say goodbye.
Yes, don't want to end this interview.
Well, how I usually end a meeting like this is thank you for satsang. It's good to see you brave hearts here today.
Uau, uau, uau.
Hum.
Well. Gente, que a gente passa pela
Satsang.
emoção toda de novo que a gente passou lá, né? A
Sat-
gente
Satsang.
recente.
Satsang.
Satsang, gente.
Satsang
Não é muito
online.
lindo? É muito lindo a presença, o silêncio, a mensagem, a abertura, né? Muito especial. HcO traz para a gente algumas surpresas, né? Todas são surpresas, mas algumas surpresas, pelo amor, que a gente fica né? Sem ar. Muito
Eu
bom.
eu lembrei que aquele dia eu tive dois. Foi o primeiro de manhã e outro à tarde.
É, satsang suar mesmo, né?
Satsang.
Tô chegando, Suará, tô chegando. Oi, caiu as coisas aqui. Tô chegando. Meus queridos,
Gente,
derrubei tudo aqui, caiu um monte de coisa.
como semana que vem a Dívia vai representar o HcO em Retiro, o nosso amado Swaha. Nós voltamos dia 19 com outra linda entrevista. Muito obrigado a todos. Né?
Sim, queridos. Até semana que vem. Até daqui a 2 semanas. Beijos, beijos, beijos. Tchau, tchau.